What's going on YouTube? It's fineokay, and today I'm talking to you about the Guardian builds and the some of the mages that are viable in solo. I'm just going to be talking about their builds and kind of how the builds have changed since the last time we talked about them, because there have been some things that have changed for sure. Some things have stayed the same, and most of these Guardians aren't even viable, so we're just going to be talking about a few of them and their builds. And of course the few mages that are also viable in solo, like Baron Samedi, Changa, Afro I think is viable, even Hell. These like healer gods, these utility gods I think are more viable in solo, so we'll be talking about them as well. But to start out, we're just going to go through the Guardians. Most of these Guardians are going to have a very similar build. As far as RDO goes, I really like going Mage's Blessing, tier 1 boots, if I can get it. Teleport, of course, you're going to be going teleport as your first relic in pretty much every single game, no matter the character. There's a few Guardians that will actually be going Mage's Blessing and a few mages that will be going Mage's Blessing, but most of the Guardians and mages will be going Guardian's Blessing because it's just a really, really good item right now. Of course, you're going Chalice. I've already talked about this numerous times, especially in other videos, but Chalice, you're going to be going pretty much every game. You want to make sure you can try and go to every game just because it's so powerful. But on the couple characters where you do go Mage's Blessing, keep in mind that this will eventually provide you 10% CDR. So that's something that you have to calculate into your builds to make sure that you do not overcap in CDR. So the first thing that we're going to change so that we don't overcap in CDR is going pen boots instead of cooldown boots. And I think this is a pretty big deal on RDO because she does a lot of damage early. So this 10 pen that you're getting at 55 power is the same as the cooldown boots. But the 10 pen you're getting is actually going to increase your damage quite a bit, especially on their carries. So it'd be really useful. And since you're getting 10% CDR from this item, whereas before you'd have like Warrior's Blessing and you wouldn't have the 10% CDR from your starter item, you'd go cooldown boots because it would be really helpful for that. However, the only reason you could still go cooldown boots, I think, even on a character that has Mage's Blessing, is just because this mana that you get, 250 mana, is really useful early on because you're going to be spamming your abilities a lot in lane, and you don't get any mana from Mage's Blessing. Although you do get some MP5 and regen, it's not going to be that helpful in that regard, whereas 250 mana, that's like 4 abilities, especially early on, that you can cast because of that. So just keep that in mind. It kind of just depends on what you want to do. If you're against a physical, you'll be going Breastplate. If you're against a magical, you're going to be going Voidstone. This is going to put your CDR a little bit behind, but you're going to be doing absolute true damage to their carries with these two items. It's going to give you so much damage. And of course, since you already have the 10% from your starter item, you're going to be going Breastplate next. If you're against a magical in lane, then Breastplate is going to be your third item. And with this, you're going to have 40% CDR if you have 10% here, 20% here, plus the 10% from your blue buff. So you're already at full CDR, and you literally only have one CDR item in your build. Even though this gives you CDR, it's not really an item, and you're buying it for other reasons anyway. So that's going to be the start to your build. This is where things kind of change depending on the game and how it's going. If you're against triple magical, then I really like going Onis here because you don't need any more CDR. This % damage mitigation that you're getting from this passive is really nice. So I'd be going Onis there. If you're not against triple magical, or maybe you are, but you don't really have to worry too much about their magical damage, you want to get maybe a bit of both, and you go Hide the Urchin there. Then you're going to be going your Spirit Robe. I think Spirit Robe is pretty much a must-buy every game. And then whatever you need last item, it kind of depends. Magi's is still really good. Basically the entire cloak tree. Magi's is still a really good option. It's going to make it really hard for them to actually commit onto you. And keep in mind that as a Guardian, maybe not as an RDO, but most of these Guardians you're going to be playing a little bit different than you would as a Warrior. You're not going to be diving as much as you normally would, and you're going to be playing a little bit more with your carries and stuff like that. So it kind of changes your build a little bit. Not too much, but so whatever you need last item, it definitely just depends. You could even go Ethereal or Soul Reaver because it increases your damage a lot, and the items with all these items you have right here, it's going to make you pretty tanky. So that is an option. You could also go Mantle last item. This is going to really put you at high protections, and the % pen items are really going to shred through you. But you'd be buying this basically for the passive to help you survive. So that's that. Like I said, Onis is really good. Some of the other viable options that you can go are Gem of Isolation if you want more damage. On some of these characters, they make good use of it. Wing Blade is still a viable option. On some of these Guardians, you can even go Stone of Gaia. I think Stone of Gaia is really good because they have a large health pool, so the regen you're getting from this is really nice. So especially on a character like Kuzonbo, or maybe on a Guardian that has like protections or damage mitigation in their passive. Like Kuzonbo has damage mitigation in his passive, so I really like going Stone of Gaia on him because he has that survivability and utility in his passive, so the extra health that you get from this is going to be really nice. It's just going to give you a lot of combined effective health. So that's how you build a character like Ardio. Another character you can build very similar to that is Kuzonbo. Terra a little bit different, but for the most part the same, except with her you want to be rushing your ethereal staff a little bit quicker if you're going to go that route. Let me see, let me go pen boots. Same thing though. Breastplate if you're against physical, void stone if you're against the magical, and vice versa. Or you just switch them, like I said. But you're going to be rushing your ethereal a little bit sooner, and then you'll be going your urchin and your spirit robe. Pretty simple. Basically, in every guardian build, you want to have a breastplate, you want to have a void stone, you want to have an urchin, and you want to have a spirit robe. You can switch some of these out, maybe for like mantle, or depending on the enemy team comp, maybe you need to go Oni hunters because they have triple magical, or they have 2 mages that are hitting really hard, or anything like that. But for the most part, those are your core items in the build. They're kind of a non-negotiable for the most part. So Terra is going to be built very similar to Ardio. Cerberus built in a similar way. However, Cerberus, Sobek, Xingtian, all these, Athena, are all going to be built in a way that instead of going Mage's Blessing, you're going to be going Guardian's Blessing, like I said before. So you're not going to be getting that 10% CDR. So because you're not getting that 10% CDR early on, let me just throw these in here to make sure we have them. So we get a base point. So because you're not getting that 10% CDR early on, and because you need the CDR to actually clear the wave, especially on a character like Sobek or Athena, you need CDR early because you're not going to be one-shotting the wave nearly as quickly as like a warrior or some of these other guardians, like Ardio. You're going to be rushing your CDR immediately, so you want to be going 10% here, so you get 20% here. Now you're at full CDR when you have blue buff, so that's really nice. Like I said before, if you're against a magical in lane, then go Void Stone here instead. But you want to have a Void Stone in basically every build, and you want to have a breastplate in every build. So that's the only difference early on. However, they are going to be played a little bit different as well. They're not going to make good, as good of use out of items like ethereal staff and stuff like that, especially because the reason these characters are so good right now, like Sobek, Athena, Cerberus, stuff like that, is because the CC they provide and the setup they provide for their team. Cerberus a little different because he can dive pretty hard and he does do a lot of damage. And it's not like these characters don't do a lot of damage. It's just that the CDR that you buy allows you to have your CC abilities up that are really effective right now, up a whole lot, so that you can just set up your team really easily. And then the only difference in the build would be you'd be going something like this, and then you'll be going whatever you want last item. It just really depends. Magi's, I think, is usually the go-to. And then with this build, once you reach your final build, you can sell this for mantle. This is usually what most people do. It's gonna make you really tanky, really hard to deal with. And the reason that you're selling your breastplate for mantle late game is because you're gonna have a 500 pot. So you have 10% here, 10% here, 10% here, and then you have your 500 pot, which is gonna allow you to be at 40%. So you're gonna keep that 40% capped CDR the entire game, which is, I think, a really big deal on characters that have really good CC like Sobek. The more often that you're able to pluck, the better it is for your team, the more likely that you're gonna win. So that's why you would want to keep the 40% CDR. And at the late game stages, you're not going to be having your blue buff as much. You're no longer going to be literally getting every blue buff respawn and making sure you get it. It's just not going to happen. So it's going to be more rare for you to have blue buff. So you're not going to be worried about overcapping anyway. And if you are for some reason getting your blue buff a lot, then you can sell this for either pen boots or for tank boots, and then you'll be fine. Your base damage will carry you. This pen that you're getting from Void Stone will carry you. You're still going to do decent damage. You're still going to be able to finish off kills if people are low. But your job changes from mid-game being somebody who can actually just one-shot some of their carries to a CC bot late game and setting up for your team and just tanking like Phoenixes and stuff like that. So you just want to make sure that you're as tanky as possible and able to CC as often as possible. So that's how you build characters like I said before, Athena, Sobek, Xingtian, Cerberus, stuff like that. Cerberus can be built both ways though. He's kind of one of those in-betweens. Everything else isn't really viable, so we're not even going to talk about it. Kuzonbo is kind of in the same boat as Cerberus. He can be built either way. However, he has a very specific build that I like to go because I'm just going to show you it right now. Full CDR, really good on him. Void Stone, really good on him. So everything's the same as far as that goes. However, I go Nemean on him. I don't go here. I'd probably go Urchin here instead. I'd probably go something like this. Urchin, Nemean, Spirit Robe. The reason for that is your job as Kuzonbo is to be very annoying and to reflect damage. Like really, that's your main job, is to reflect damage. He's really useful in other regards. He has a lot of CC. The fact that his 1 and his 3 are reducing cooldown when people hit his 2, when he takes damage on his 2, is really, really good. So he's actually really good with CC, and his ult's really amazing. However, if they have an ADC, your job as Kuzonbo is to click 2, click Thorns, and walk at that person. And if they hit you at all, you're going to out-damage. You're going to hard out-damage them. They're not going to be able to out-damage your, first of all, your tankiness, but also the reflect damage. You're going to reflect a whole lot of damage in that regard. Also, say that their magical isn't, you know, you don't really have to worry about their magicals way too much. Maybe they have, like, for example, they have like Janice and then like 1 Guardian, or like Ra and like 1 Guardian. That's an example of like you being able to not go as much magical defense because their magical damage isn't really going to hit you that often, and you can very easily juke it. So that's an example of where you can go Stone of Gaia, because like I said before, the passive that Kuzonbo has gives him a lot of effective health if he goes items that have like a lot of health on them. And plus, I think Stone of Gaia is actually a little bit underrated right now, because it's it's just a really cost-effective item, and it allows you to stay out on the map for a long period of time. It allows you to siege better. There's a lot of benefits to going it, in my opinion. So if you're able to go Stone of Gaia, then I would go it. Probably right there. But I do like going Nemean on Kuzonbo because, like I said, your main objective is to make it so the enemy ADC is useless. Not only that, but there's a lot of mages that Kuzonbo is really good against with reflective damage. Characters that throw their abilities down and they can't do anything about it after. Agni, if he dashes, you walk into it with Kuzonbo, reflect all that damage. It's a really big deal. Zeus, if he throws out his 2-1, it will bounce between and his ult. You just sit in that. That's a lot of damage you're going to reflect to him. And there's a lot of examples of mages that do very similar thing. Agni, the same way, if he bombs, you can walk into it. There's so many characters that you see the ability coming, you can walk into it and reflect a lot of the damage. And so yeah. But you do have to recognize that if you are going to try and reflect and make it really annoying for their mages, that you may want to go more magical defense. So maybe you don't invest into an Nemean or something like that. It just kind of depends on the enemy team comp and what your objective is, and you just have to think about it. And that's why thinking about your build at the beginning of the game is always important, and there's never a cookie cutter build, and every situation is different. So that basically covers all the viable Guardians and their builds and what you should be doing right now as a guideline. And as far as the characters, the mages that can be played in solo, especially these healers, we're going to start with Baron Samedi because he is one of those prevalent characters. So he has a couple builds. He can just go your standard Guardian's Blessing, Boots. I always type in Warrior, even though it's a mage. This would be your start, like we talked about before. Actually, you can just go Baron's Brew. I probably would go Baron's Brew in like 1 or 2 health pots. Usually you only need 1. It's just better to go this because it's cheaper, so you can save a little bit of gold. And of course you go cooldown boots because you don't have the 10% from your starter item. If you're against a physical, then you can go breastplate. If you're against a magical, void stone. Same thing as before, pretty simple. However, you can switch up this build a little bit. I think you can go Urchin. I think you could also go Lotus Crown here. I think you could go Spirit Robe. It kind of just depends. I usually like to go Urchin. But then that's where it changes a little bit. I think you can go Gem of Isolation, can I speak? Or Rod of Asclepius here because they have good healing, and these characters have a lot of range with their abilities, so if they're able to throw them out, they can make good use of like Gem of Isolation passive, and also like the Rod of Asclepius healing. You're going to heal your team every time you use your 2, and when you're at full CDR, you're going to be using your 2 quite often. So it also increases your damage a little bit because it gives you 90 magical power, which is pretty nice for your scaling. But if you do go a damage item in that slot, then I would go a defense item last. But it also doesn't hurt to just go full defense because you are a character that can be gone on pretty quickly and pretty easily. So the more defense and utility and survivability you have, the better, because it allows you to actually use your abilities more often. So that's a pretty big deal. So that would be the build for Baron, one of the builds for Baron. Another build that I like to go on him. This is pretty viable and ranked in my opinion, especially if you're a really good Baron player, is to go Mage's Blessing. Boots, of course. You guys get that. I'm going to go ahead and skip that. Then we're going to be going cooldown boots, and even though you're getting a 10% here, the reason for that is because you're going to be going into Celestial Legion Helm, into Genji's. So now if we look at it, we're at 40% CDR when we have 10% here, 10 here, 10 here, plus blue buff. So now we're at 40% CDR, and that allows us to go more damage here now. The point of this build is to be more of a damage dealer. And then you can sell Pythags, I think is a really good item on him. It's a nice utility item. It gives his team some damage, more cooldown. You're going to be at 40% or 40% without blue buff, 50% when you have blue buff, but then you can just sell your Mage's Blessing for your final item, which can be a plethora of things. Could be more damage if you want to do that. This is really good for ranked. I think you can hard carry with this build and still be really tanky and hard to deal with. However, if you're against good players and they're focusing you out, then you can go Mantle, you can go Spirit Robe as your last item. But this is, I think, a really nice build because it just allows you to do so much damage. Maybe you have a character in mid that, or like a support that's going Voidstone, or maybe you don't need the pen because you have a Poseidon in mid who's going like Spear of the Magus, so you're already going to proc it. Then Gem of Isolation is a really good pickup. And even then, you don't really need pen on Baron because a lot of the time you can get onto their carries with him. And, oh, what the heck? One second. Making noises. You don't always need the pen, like I said before, so maybe just going these like damage items that also give you some utility, crowd control reduction, some health and stuff like that is going to make it really annoying for the enemy team to deal with. So this is a viable build on him for sure. Like I said, Mage's Blessing will be in this slot, so just keep that in mind. And always keep in mind the 10% CDR you're getting from Mage's Blessing so that you don't randomly overcap when you don't need to. But this is a really nice build on him, makes you really tanky and makes you really hard to deal with because you do a lot of damage and also really hard to kill. So that'd be a viable build on Baron. All the healers are going to be built in a very similar way. Chang'e, Hel, Afro. And the way you build them is pretty simple. If you're comfortable with playing these characters in lane without having to, worry about getting killed or ganked too often, Mage's Blessing is the go-to. And the reason for that, it depends on the character you're playing. But usually you want to go Chalice. And then Teleport. On Chang'e, however, I'm going to put Teleport because you're going to be doing this on Afro and Hel for the most part. Sometimes you don't want to go Teleport on Hel. However, on Chang'e, you do not actually have to go Teleport, and actually a really good stand-in for Teleport is Meditation because you want to sit in lane for a long period of time because you can just buy everything from in lane because your bunny will go get it for you. But like I said before, you don't have to go Chalice on the healers just because they have Sustain in their kit, so you can get away with going just like regular health pots and not spending it on Chalice. However, I still really like Chalice because it allows you to just have it no matter what, just in case like something bad happens and you don't have enough Sustain. You just have that Chalice to heal you back up at any stage in the game. So we're still going to be going cooldown boots on these characters, and the reason for that is not so much for the 10% CDR, even though that is nice and is a big deal. The reason you're doing that is for the extra mana early on, because on characters like Hel, Afro, Chang'e, you're going to be using a lot of mana early, so you want to have that the 250 extra mana that you're getting from these boots. Not only that, but depending on who you're against, you're going to be going Lotus Crown into Genji's. So similar to Baron, except instead of Celestial Legion Home, you're actually going Lotus Crown because you're going to make good use of the passive when you heal your teammates into Genji. So now you're going to be sitting at that 40% CDR when you have blue buff, and then you're going to be going into your Rod of Asclepius. You want to make sure that you have that because you're playing a healer, and it's going to really help your team out and keep them pretty tanky. And this is where it completely depends on the enemy team comp. Magi's is always nice. It's going to be really, really hard for them to kill you, especially as like Chang'e or Afro, who has the ult for CC immunity and damage immunity. You're just going to have so many ways to get out of things and not take damage. It's going to be really hard for them to deal with you. And then, whatever you need last time. It could be Spirit Robe. It could be Gem of Isolation. On a character like Chang'e, on a character like Afro, these characters are really safe, and they're going to be really tanky with the items that we already have. Let me put those in the build. Oftentimes, you can go Gem of Isolation last because it's just going to allow you to be super hard to deal with because you're going to be constantly applying the Gem of Isolation passive. And it's going to make you do a lot of extra damage. You're getting 90 power from this and 90 power from that, and then you're already sitting at full CDR, so you're going to have good scaling for your abilities, good utility in all the items, and you're going to be healing for a lot as well. So keep that in mind. It's not only that you're getting extra scaling for the damage part of your abilities, but most of these characters have scaling for their heals as well, so the extra power is really nice. Oh, my throat is starting to hurt. I've been talking a whole lot. So this is you would build like this on Chang'e, Hel, Afro. You could even build like this on Baron if you really wanted to. The only difference with Hel is there's a build where you can go Book of Thoth. And the reason for this is, so your start would be tier 2 book. You would go 2 health pots and a mana pot. And instead of going teleport, you would go something like Aegis or Beads. And the reason for this is you're very, very squishy early on. You have a really, really low health pool, so you oftentimes want to go something to help you survive. Not only that, but you can get a little bit behind as hell and still be really useful. If you don't go teleport on her and get a little bit behind, that's perfectly fine as long as you're not getting completely fucked and like 5 levels behind. You're going to be more useful as a hell who's constantly healing their team and cleansing them than a character like a warrior who may be a level ahead of you. As long as you're playing it correctly and the enemy solo isn't like a fucking beast. So usually you would go something like Aegis. And the reason you're going Book of Thoth is because if you go Book of Thoth on hell, first of all, she has a big mana problem, a big mana issue. She uses a lot of mana. But not only that, the amount of power and mana you're getting from this is going to allow you to constantly heal yourself with your 3. It's going to heal you for like 300 early on. It's going to be insane. That's a really big heal, basically half your health pool. The mana is going to be really nice when you get to team fights. Excuse me. But everything else is going to be very similar. So I like to just go this build. Book of Thoth. Cooldown boots, Lotus Crown Genjis. Sitting at 20% here, 30% when you have blue buff. Then it kind of just depends from there. Rada Asclepius is really nice. If you feel like you're not dying all that much and you can, just basically get your abilities off nonstop and they're not really going on you too hard, maybe they're trying to focus your carries more and you can get away with things, then Chronos Pen is a good option here because that allows you to be at the 40% CDR. The passive on this can be really nice. The extra power, everything's really good. This is basically a healer item or item that's really good for healers. It's good on everybody, but especially good on healers. So you can get away with going that, but you can also go something like Magi's Blessing here. The only issue with going like Magi's Cloak or whatever in this slot, even though it's going to make you really hard to deal with and very tanky, is that you're not going to be sitting at full CDR, and you really want the full CDR in characters like this. So if you're in that situation, maybe you can sell your Genjis or something for Chronos Pendant if you really want the full CDR. But keep in mind that if you do have Genjis here and you just keep this build, you will be at 30% CDR because you have the 500 pot come late game. So it's not all that big of a deal. You're just going to be 10% less. However, the Chronos Pendant passive is really nice. So that's one reason that you would want to get it. So that is how you build the Viable Mages as well. That should cover everyone. Everything else isn't really viable or isn't worth like really talking about right now, in my opinion. So that covers the Guardians and the Mages that are viable in solo right now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, learned a thing or two. If chat, you guys have any questions about anything maybe I missed, or maybe it seems like I'm kind of dumb or something, I don't know. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to type them in the chat right now and I'll try and answer them for you. Get a sip of water. How to build Hebo in solo? I would basically just build him like a Guardian with full CDR, and instead of going full defense, I would switch out my last item for like a Soul Reaver. Oh, I kind of forgot about Zhonghui, didn't I?
Happy birthday.
Zhonghui can be built any of the ways that I showed. He can be built like a Guardian, he can be built like a healer, he can be built like a damage mage. He can literally be built like any of those characters. I would build him like a damage baron build, basically, is how I would build it. Yo, Eradicate, thank you for the 6 months. Welcome back. I appreciate it. Yeah, prepaid need, that was. Because you get Ethereal right when you buy Blink on her, Profound Thoughts, and it allows you to blink in and get a lot of damage off right when you buy Blink, and it makes her really, really useful, and it makes her heal for a lot because her heals are based on scaling as well. Everything about it is really good, and you're already tanky enough with 2 defense items as Terra. Terra is really hard to deal with and very tanky. So, do you ever build Emperor's Armor in solo? No, that's a support item. Do you not like Terra solo, or did I miss her? I mentioned that you would build her like the other characters. I showed how to build her. She's a little bit different, but mostly the same. Do you consider someone viable or not? Testing them out and seeing whether they're good, basically. What's up, Ryan's Privates? How are you? Posh would be built like Baron. With Gem of Isolation. Make sure that you have Gem of Isolation on him. That's the only key thing that you need. You can go full CDR, Gem of Isolation on him. Basically like Zhong. So Zhong and Opwash can be built like this. I'll just show it real quick. Whatever starter item you want to go. Keep in mind, if you want Mage's Blessing, maybe you switch out your boots for pen boots. I like to go Spear of the Magus on these characters. It makes you do a lot of damage. So this would be how I build Zhonghui and Upwash. Maybe you could switch it out based on the game and the enemy team comp. But for the most part, that's how you build them. Khepri and Sylvanas, the only Guardians who are not viable in solo? No, most of these characters aren't. Ares, Bacchus, Bracken is viable. Ares, Bacchus, Fafnir, Ganesh, Geb, Khepri, Kumba, Sylvanas, Ymir. Ymir is actually a little bit viable, so there's a few more than that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thanks for asking the questions, guys. Hopefully I addressed most of the issues or talked about most of the things that are important about Guardians and Mages and soloing these days, and especially how to build them and everything like that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry for kind of losing my voice at the end and kind of rambling on and maybe not being coherent at times. That was a lot of talking, so yeah, like I said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a thing or two. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. If you like Smite guides and Smite soloing and everything like that, then feel free to subscribe to my channel. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.